All right, back at it. Chapter 15. So in chapter 14, Centipede bit off the peach from the branch, and they started to move. All the furniture crashes to one side. Chapter 15. Chapter 15. Outside in the garden at that very moment, Aunt Sponge and Aunt Spiker had just taken their places at the front gate, each with a bunch of tickets in their hand, and the first stream of early morning sightseers were visible in the distance climbing up the hill to view the peach. Remember, this is all happening in one night. The day before, there's tons of people there, helicopters, people looking, people wanting to pay to see the peach. James goes in at night, meets all these creatures, falls asleep. It's morning. So this all happened in one night.
Oh, we shall make a fortune today, Aunt Spiker said. Just look at all those people.
Oh, I wonder what become of that horrid little boy of ours last night. He never did come back in, did he?
He probably fell in the dark and broke his leg,
Aunt Spiker said. Or his neck, maybe, Aunt Sponge said hopefully.
Just wait till I get my hands on him,
Aunt Spiker said, waving her cane.
He'll never want to stay out at night again by the time I finish with him. Good gracious me. What's that awful noise?
Both women swung around to look. The noise, of course, had been caused by the giant peach crashing through the fence that surrounded it, and now, gathering speed every second, it came rolling across the garden toward the place where Aunt Sponge and Aunt Spiker were standing. They gaped. They screamed. They started to run. They panicked. They both got in each other's way, bumping each other. They began pushing and jostling, and each of them was thinking only about saving herself. Aunt Sponge, the fat one, tripped over a box that she brought along to keep the money in and fell flat on her face. Aunt Spiker immediately tripped over Aunt Sponge and came down on top of her. They both lay on the ground, fighting and clawing and yelling and struggling frantically to get up again. But before they could do this, the mighty peach was upon them. So imagine them scrambling and running away. They have this peach coming behind them. They freak out, they trip over each other, and then they look up, and there's the giant peach. There they are, looking up, tons of money in their hand. There was a crunch, and then there was silence. The peach rolled on, and behind it, Aunt Sponge and Aunt Spiker lay ironed out upon the grass, as flat and thin and lifeless as a couple of paper dolls cut out of a picture book. So the peach squashed them. No more Aunt Sponge, no more Aunt Spiker. All right, we'll continue our journey, chapter 16. So peach is rolling, goes down, squashes Aunt Sponge and Aunt Spiker, still rolling. And remember what James saw in the very background? He always wanted Aunt Sponge and Aunt Spiker to take him to the beach. But they said no. He could see it, but he couldn't go. Chapter 16. And now the peach had broken out of the garden and was over the edge of the hill, rolling and bouncing down the steep slope at a terrific pace. Faster and faster and faster it went, and the crowds of people who were climbing up the hill suddenly caught sight of this terrible monster plunging down upon them, and they screamed and scattered to the right and to the left as it was hurtling by. At the bottom of the hill, it charged across the road, knocking over a telegraph pole and flattening two parked automobiles as it went by. So this peach is just rolling past. People are running out of the way. It's smashing telephone lines, smashing cars, because it's so big and heavy. Then it rushed madly across about 20 fields, breaking down all the fences and hedges in the path. Hedges are like bushes. It went right through the middle of a herd of a fine Jersey cow, and then through a flock of sheep, and then through a paddock full of horses, and then through a yard full of pigs, and soon the whole countryside was a seething mass of panic-stricken animals stampeding in all directions. So the peach is breaking all the fences. All the animals are getting loose and going crazy. The peach was still going at a tremendous speed with no sign of slowing down, and about a mile farther on it came to a village. Down the main street of the village it rolled, with people leaping frantically out of its path left and right, and at the end of the street it came crashing right through the wall of an enormous building and out the other side, leaving two gaping round holes in the brickwork. This building happened to be a famous factory where they made chocolate. What? Factory? Chocolate? Famous? I wonder which one that is. And almost at once, a great river of warm melted chocolate came pouring out of the holes in the factory wall. A minute later, this brown, sticky mess was flowing through every street in the village, oozing under the doors of houses and into people's shops and gardens. Children were wading in it up to their knees, and some were even trying to swim in it. And all of them were sucking it down their mouths in great, greedy gulps and shrieking with joy. But the peach rushed on across the countryside, on and on and on, leaving a trail of destruction in its wake. Cowsheds, stables, pigsties, barns, bungalows, hayricks. Anything that got in its way went toppling over like a nine-pin. An old man sitting quietly beside a stream had his fishing rod whisked away out of his hand as it went dashing by, and a woman called Daisy and Swistle was standing so close to it as it passed that she had the skin taken off the top of her long nose, like that. Would it ever stop? So right there is just 2 pages explaining of how this peach is moving from the hill through a town, and because it's so big, it is destroying everything. So that's what the 2 pages are. They're just describing all the things that it's causing, all this destruction. Would it ever stop? Why should it? A round object will always keep on rolling as long as it's on a downhill slope. And in this case, the land sloped downhill all the way until it reached the ocean. The same ocean that James had begged his aunts to be allowed to visit the day before. Well, perhaps he was going to visit now. The peach was rushing closer and closer to it every second, and closer also to the towering white cliffs that came first. These cliffs are the most famous in the whole of England, and they are hundreds of feet high. Below them, the sea is deep and cold and hungry. Many ships have been swallowed up and lost forever on this part of the coast, and all the men who were in them as well. The peach was now only 100 yards away from the cliff, now 50, now 20 yards, now 10, now 5. And when it reached the edge of the cliff, it seemed to leap up into the sky and hang there suspended for a few seconds, still turning over and over and over in the air. So it gets to the cliff, and just whoosh, and then it began to fall. Down, 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 down. Smack. It hit the water with a colossal splash and sank like a stone. So here it is. Look how high. So imagine, this peach is huge, huge. Like, it smashes cars, breaks through buildings. That's how big this peach is. So see how high it goes. Floats, 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 floats. But a few seconds later, up it came. This time, it stayed up, floating serenely upon the surface of the water. The end of chapter 16. So we just learned that the peach, top of the hill, crashes through everything, jumps over the side cliff, falls into the ocean, pops up, and now is floating in the ocean. And that's where we're going to leave it.